Welcome to Caring Community with your host, Jay West. In this community, creative initiatives are welcomed. A culture of transformation is normal, and miracles are expected. Welcome to Caring Community.
Hi, welcome to Caring Community. My name is Jay West, and I'm so glad that you joined us today. And my special guest is Dr. Mark Zehnder. How are you?
Hey, Jay. I'm good.
So I don't know whether to call you Dr. Mark Zehnder, Reverend Mark Zehnder, just Mark.
I think there's one person in the whole world that calls me doctor.
Yeah.
So don't worry about that.
You got your doctorate at Fuller Seminary, is that correct?
I did.
Yeah, and you worked there. I remember you worked under C. Peter Wagner for a while.
Yeah, C. Peter Wagner and Carl George and.
Oh yeah, Carl George, forgot that name.
Yeah.
So Mark has been the senior pastor at King of Kings Church here in Omaha for like 1,500 years or so, and slight exaggeration, you're not that old, but
right.
You've been there forever.
I like to say that I was lead pastor for a quarter of a century.
Okay.
Yeah, for 25 years,
And you started out as assistant pastor.
I did.
And now you're assistant pastor again.
Yeah.
So you're like in transition, so
Very much
many
so.
transitions. But through a strange set of circumstances, we're going to be working together for at least a year and probably longer. So this is an amazing guy. He's got so much talent, so many gifts, so much anointing, just an incredible man of God. And he's been a blessing to me in so many ways, so many times, so many ways. My favorite story, if you don't mind me sharing it.
Your show, Jay.
My show, yeah. Sorry. Have a drink of coffee, enjoy. I'll just talk for a while. So I called you on the phone one day, and I was talking about going to Dr. Wagner's conference in Dallas.
Oh, yeah.
And I called him, and we were talking about it. It was short term, and you have to be invited by somebody that's on the team or whatever. And I had secured that invitation from Dr. Wagner himself, because you could only invite two. And he made a comment to me on the phone, Mark made a comment to me on the phone, isn't it expensive to fly down there? And
Well, yeah, because you were trying to do it in the last minute.
Right, in the last minute. And I had checked the airfare, and I remember I don't know if you remember the amount, but I remember the amount to the dollar. It was $751, okay? And Mark said, well, I'm going to pray that God just provides that for you. And like 30 minutes later, he calls me back on the phone. He said, I shouldn't have prayed that prayer because God spoke to me and told me to provide it for you. So, by the way, I need a new car. You want to pray for that? So anyway, but I've been able to minister at King of Kings multiple times in a variety of ways, and we see each other in passing, but had some conversations along the way, and city reaching and all sorts of things. But more recently, coming on board there, working with him for the next year, at least in prayer ministry, and I'm excited about that. But I don't want to talk about that too much. I want to talk about you and anything that's on your heart and why don't you tell us, to stay in one church, you've been there, 29 years?
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
going on.
Yeah, that's unusual.
Yeah.
Okay. That's unusual in any denomination.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
There are exceptions, but that's unusual in any denomination for a pastor to stay that long at one church. Tell us what that looks like and
Okay, well, I got out of seminary, went to my first church. I was there for 3 years. Then I had the blessing to start a new.
And you grew up, because your dad's a pastor, or was a pastor, your dad was a pastor.
And my grandfather.
And your grandfather.
And my two uncles.
Yeah, and now your son
Now
is.
my son, a cousin.
Yeah.
We
They're taking over the world.
It's kind of like a time-released gene
Okay.
in the Zehnder family. You just wake up one day and you realize, I went kicking and screaming. I didn't want to be a pastor, wasn't planning on it, but God.
What did you want to be?
Baseball player, something in sports, golf, some.
I can see you in golf.
Yeah.
Our previous guest that Bill Bowes, didn't plan to be a firefighter and then become a fire chief, but God had other plans there too. So
yeah. So I had planted the church, my wife and I, in Collierville, Tennessee, just north of Memphis. And we were there for about 9 years, and the Lord just super blessed it, and we loved it there. We loved raising our kids there. And then I got this kind of inquiry from this place called King of Kings in Omaha. And I can still remember Ken Jasperson sitting with me over breakfast and saying, Mark, why would you leave where you are? You're in the captain's chair. You got one of the fastest growing churches in the denomination, and come here, sit in the second chair. And I remember thinking about that, and I said, well, I don't know if I'm going to move to Omaha. I don't have a call, but if a call comes, and I do decide to come, I think it would be because of this. Where I'm at, the captain of my own ship, if you will, it's like I'm on a vessel out on a huge body of water, but I can see the horizon. Mm-hmm. And I said, if I felt led to come to Omaha, to King of Kings, it would probably be because you can't see the horizon. The vision for what God is doing, could do at King of Kings is so expansive, that would probably be what would draw me there, even though I wouldn't be in the lead position. And that's exactly what happened. And it's exactly why I'm still here, because all those years, there was always something next that God was saying, okay, here's what's next. And it was exciting. And I'm wired that way. I'm an activator. I'm very futuristic in my kind of gift mix, if you will. So and of course we love it here now. It's our home, and we have our friends, and almost our whole family is now living here, which is great.
29, I've been here 22, and people asked when my wife died, are you going to leave? Are you going to move south where it's warmer in Texas? I said, why would I do that?
Yeah.
My support is here, my family is here,
Yeah.
my friends are here, God's here. I mean, God's in Texas too, or Florida, or wherever, but I'm just saying I don't sense a call to leave, so.
Yeah.
And this Southern California boy doesn't like snow and cold, so anyway, it has to be a God thing. Yeah. You mentioned the horizon. Years ago, I read a book, and it said managers look at the bottom line and CEOs look at the horizon. And you look at the horizon,
Yeah, I've always kind of said I'm interested in history, but I'd rather be part of making it.
Yeah.
Right. Looking back is good and helpful, and all those sorts of things, but my mindset's always kind of what's next.
Yeah, evaluations are good and they're helpful, but don't spend a whole lot of time there. The Bible's pretty clear. No man having put his hand to the plow and looking back is fit for the kingdom. That's what it says. There's a reason why the rearview mirror on your car is this big and the windshield is this big. Okay.
I just like too. It's like the scripture doesn't talk about sing an old song or do an old thing. It's always, I'm doing a new thing. I sing a new song,
Right.
So new is fun.
Yeah, new is fun. And I always say, if God says we're going to do a new thing, don't try to make it look like the old.
Yeah.
Just let it unfold and happen and let it be new, Yeah. So you've had a lot of those, and you've had a lot of successes, and you've had some trying times. You shared some of them with me the other day, which we won't go into, but difficult seasons where things just kind of unraveled. They weren't your fault. They're other people's choices and decisions, but they affect a lot of people. So, and how do you pastor through that? How do you navigate, without going into the details, but how do you, because this is a large church, it's a big church, a lot of thousands of people. How do you keep them going in the midst of a crisis?
I remember one of our members once said to me, Mark, we're behind you. We're just too far behind. And he was saying to me, kind of the futuristic sort of vision kind of guy, you got to every now and then look around and see if anybody's like right behind you, because if they're way back there, obviously you're not leading very well. But I think for me, it boils down to trust and love. I think when I've talked with young pastors about this that have the same kind of question, it's like, if your people know truly that you love them,
right,
and they know that you're with Jesus and you're talking to Jesus, and He's the one that you're getting your direction from, not that He only shares direction with me, it's all of us, but if they know you're with Jesus and you love them, they'll pretty much follow you. I think that's, I don't know, it seems simple, but to me it's...
Well, and it also demonstrates your leadership qualities. John Maxwell says, if you think you're leading a bunch of people and you turn around, nobody's there. You're merely taking a walk, right?
True.
So there's that aspect. Even if they're far behind, I'd rather them be far behind and following you. I've been around some pastors who are more like sheepdogs and are barking at your heels trying to get you to move, and rather than being out in front. The shepherd's supposed to be out in front. At least that's my understanding. So
Yeah.
you're doing a good job of that. And you've done a great job of that at King of Kings for all these years. And it's an awesome place right here in Omaha. There are many awesome churches in Omaha. It's not the only one.
That's for
I've
sure.
I've been blessed to preach in over 100, almost 150 of them myself.
Wow.
So I've seen a lot of churches.
150 in Omaha.
Yeah, I think I've been to 145 churches.
Wow.
That I've in most of them repeatedly. Yeah. So.
Wow.
Yeah. So.
That's
there's
impressive.
been a couple exceptions. Yeah. Yeah, I've had a lot of favor in the city. So. I met with Sid Roth here for dinner one time, and he said, I've never met anybody locally that's been in that many churches in their own town, so it's just a favor of God. So what are some highlights? What are some cool, incredible, wonderful blessings, and maybe one or two trying times, And go either direction. Doesn't matter.
Okay. At King of Kings.
Sure, yeah.
Well, I guess the first one that comes to mind, since you didn't prepare me at all for this or tell me what we were talking about.
We don't pre-script any of the questions, so never. This is my 49th show, and I don't pre-script any questions.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. So the first one that comes to mind was back in, I think it was 04, I'm pretty sure it was 04. We just had an issue where we couldn't get people in and out of the church or the parking lot with people were leaving our church and sitting in their cars and trying to get out of the parking lot for 15 minutes because it was so jam-packed. And we actually one day put a camera up on the roof and followed a car in. We had a little ticker at the bottom, going with time. Followed the car into the parking lot. Car comes in, stops, and finally after 15 minutes just left because couldn't find a parking spot. So, all that said, we decided to purchase a pretty large piece of property, 132 acres. And I just knew at the time, just believed with all my heart, that God was going to move us over there and we'd relocate and we'd, build this state-of-the-art sort of worship center. And I had all kinds of ideas and visions about that. And then, time went on, life went on, 08 happened, financial crisis. We had a lot of things that happened even internally. We had a bunch of turnover of a lot of pastors that left. And then it just, as we all know, the culture in America kind of changed. And even the culture of the church changed, where churches weren't building like large sanctuaries, but they were going more to smaller, more intimate settings and multi-sites and things like that.
Right.
So over all those years, that land sat there. And I just believed that one day, when I retired and passed the baton to the next guy, I believed I'd pass that gift of that land, which has been paid off for many years. And that's what I'd, give to him, if you will. And then through a whole series of crazy circumstances, we decided, maybe God had a bigger idea and a better idea. And so we put that land up for sale a few years back and sold it and just reaped incredible rewards from how much we spent and how much we got for it. And I don't even know, Jay, I'm not the lead pastor anymore, so I don't even know if I'm at liberty to say I don't even know what is all out there on that, but we got a lot more than what we paid for.
One of the associate pastors told me the other day, just told me what you've all paid for it, what you got.
Well, I can tell we paid $5.6 million.
Okay.
And I think when it's all said and done, that's going to be like $17 million that we'll receive.
Well, and you haven't sold it all yet.
Yeah,
there's some more out there. So,
that's why I say when it's all said and done.
Yeah.
Yeah. So super, and that was just kind of an example of how.
But one of the things
we made the right decision, I think, and we worked hard to raise that amount of money in a capital campaign. But it was the right thing to do, but it wasn't the right timing, and God had a bigger idea, which is always true. God's ideas are always better than ours.
I recall somewhere around that time when you bought it, we met one day, and this, I'll never forget it. You said this to me, and if you don't want to go there, just say I don't want to go there, okay? But you said something to me, everything I've done this year seems to make people mad. And that was one of the things, you know?
Well, that just comes with the territory.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that was an exaggeration. It's not everything and everybody, but yeah, you go through seasons like that as well, where
But it's interesting.
hard.
It's interesting. You know, I've been to Bethel Church in Reading, and they have they keep expanding their parking lots, and there's just more and more and more and more of them out there. And they have these little signs that they put up on their parking lots, lot full. You know, and every church in America wants that sign. You know, and you basically had that. You know?
I almost feel like we were almost close to putting signs up like you have at Disney. You know, at this point, 15 more minutes to wait.
Right,
You know.
Yeah.
But anyway.
You guys did a Disney thing, didn't you? Didn't you do a Disney analysis at some point? I thought you did that.
I know that I went to a conference at Disney, oh my goodness, back in the late 90s. And it was a joint venture between the church, some church organization, I can't remember which, and Disney, where we went in and the Disney people taught us about, you know, customer service and how to build teams, and it was fascinating to me.
Yeah,
and
right.
there was so much vision and future. Walt Disney, when he bought that property that he bought down there, he bought massive amounts of property, more than anyone could ever think anybody would need, and they're still expanding today, like 50, 60 years after the man is dead and gone.
Right, adding more theme parks, more hotels, more everything, you know, expanding constantly. So.
And the story that came out of that was businessmen from Japan were over when Disney was first built, and they were taking a tour, and Walt Disney had just died like a couple of years before that, and they just saw this amazing thing, and one of them said something to the effect, "Boy, it's a shame that Walt Disney wasn't here to see this."
Right.
And the Disney exec said, "No, actually, you're here today because Walt Disney did see this. He had the vision for it." And that's always kind of been a favorite story of mine, because I think that's what vision is. It's the capacity to see, you know, where you're going before you get there, and have passion about that.
And having vision is so important. The Bible says where there's no vision, the people perish.
Or they go to another parish.
Or they go to another parish, right? Play on words.
Thank you, Rick Warren. I learned that from him.
I just watched Rick Warren the other night and talk about the death of his son and stuff and all the things they went through when he went. And I was just not up on all that. There was another, it just popped in my head, there was another time that you had an invitation to the White House, and it seemed like 2 or 3 of you from the city were invited, and then you got there and you couldn't get in.
Les Beecham and I.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about that, and what happened and why you didn't get in. Because, you know, I recently met with the vice president, was in his office and stuff, and we had all sorts of security issues happen at the Secret Service gate. Nobody was getting in that day, and so anyway, but we did get in eventually.
My goodness, that was so long ago. All I remember is that there was kind of this late breaking invitation. There was some faith-based thing that was going to be happening. And so Christian leaders from around the nation were invited, and there were kind of a certain number that came from each place. And the invitation came to Omaha, and I don't know, somehow I got on that list. And so Les Beecham and I think there was some others, but I
Les
remember,
was a pastor at Trinity, at that time, Trinity
At
Church in Omaha, now called Lifegate.
right.
Yeah.
And so we got there, and of course you know, if you've been there, there's just all these, the security is crazy, and you go from one place then you go to the next place, and you're in kind of these holding zones.
Right.
And then they came out and they said, initially it was we were going to actually meet the president, and then it was the vice president, and none of that happened.
Right.
Something else, some other late breaking thing was happening, and so they couldn't join us. So we sat there and listened to whatever the faith-based thing was. I can't even remember, Jay, but it was It was a super experience to be there and to be with
Sure.
Les.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, you've had all these experiences, so I'm going to go back to Collierville, Tennessee for a minute. So what was that church like? Was it contemporary? I don't know anything about that church. Was it growing rapidly? Did you have a big place? What was it like?
So it was a district sponsored, so our denomination's district, Mid-South District, wanted to plant a church in that spot because it was outside of Memphis. It was a growing kind of suburb. It was only 12,000 people, so it was a small little bedroom community. And so they said, Mark, we think you could do this. And God called, and I went. So it was my wife and I and our 2 little boys. And
one of those little boys is now on your staff?
Yeah,
At
one of those
church?
little boys.
Yeah.
So we met with the district president, and he said, well, God bless you. I'm here to help you. Here's a few ideas. And we got 5 names, because they'd put a sign on the property, future home of, something Lutheran church. They didn't have the name or anything. And they'd bought like 7 acres of property. So 5 people called in. So, I was brand new. There was nothing.
Right.
And so I called the 5 families and visited one on Monday night, the next one Tuesday night, Wednesday night, and just told them what my ideas were, got their ideas, said it's going to be awesome. If you know anybody that doesn't have a relationship with Jesus, or someone that maybe does but they don't go to church anymore, invite them. We're going to have a meeting in 3 weeks. Just picked a date. And 42 people showed up.
Wow. Praise God.
And we talked then, and we started small groups just like right away, and set the next meeting for 3 weeks out. We had 60-some people come. And so we met in small groups for like 5 months. I knew that I didn't want to have the first worship service until we had at least 100 people. And so we finally did that. It was November of 1984, and we had 135 people at our first service. We met in a community center, and within a year we had to go to 2 services because we'd maxed out the room in the community center. And that church grew in that little town of 12,000 people. I think we took in like about 150 people every year for 9 years.
Wow.
And it was just a blast. It was so fun. But I was so busy. Like I was unfortunately a little bit married to the church more than I should have been back in the time. But Sharon stuck with me.
So you were there 9 years.
9 years.
What was the membership like when you left, roughly?
Right at about 1,000, I think. It was a really transient area, so that we'd receive 150 people a year, and then send 100 of them on. It was just very.
So why do you think and we got like 5 or 6 minutes left. Why do you think you got the call to Omaha? Was it because that church was growing and you were one of the few churches that was growing and they recognized it and they wanted growth? They wanted a growth type pastor like you?
Well, honestly, I think it was just the district president. I had opportunities to know him, and I think he probably saw something in the gifts that God had given to me.
The district president there, or the district president
The district president in that area, in the
Okay.
Mid-South District,
Okay.
the office in Memphis. Yeah, he was a dear man. I loved him. Yeah, so
So they said,
I didn't.
Said let's move him. He's interested in baseball and golf. Let's move him to an area that really doesn't have either one.
Well, no, they actually said, we want you to come over to Memphis and we want to talk about something. And oh, by the way, you like to play golf, right? So we'll play a little golf while you're here. So I literally played golf with Dr. Greasy. At the end of his life, he couldn't see, and I would actually put the golf ball on the tee for him and kind of line him up. And it's incredible that he could hit the ball. He couldn't see where it went, but I was his hands and his eyes a little bit.
But that's almost like the role of a pastor. You put the ball on the tee for a bunch of people that spiritually can't see anything, and you say, swing, right? And they swing, and they hit it, and they go, well, this is fun.
Yeah.
That's kind of how pastors lead.
Yeah.
It's a good analogy, really.
The
You could write a book about that. I think you should.
Yeah, maybe we'll figure
Yeah,
that
it's
out.
called Tee It Up or something, you know?
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. So you're transitioning, we got like 4 minutes left. You're transitioning now to help other churches in their transitions. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah, that's really exciting.
You've done that at King of Kings. We've got a new senior pastor.
Right.
He's transitioned in. You're here for another season, and then you're also helping other churches because churches don't transition very well, or some don't.
The statistics are very, very dismal. Like upwards 70% of leadership transitions. This isn't just in the church. It's in businesses and schools and organizations, but it's also true in the church. They don't go well. So my thought is the three things that happen poorly with transitions is sometimes the church just completely stops. It can't even go on. Mm-hmm. Sometimes bad, it's also bad. It splits. There's just a division and it splits. Right. Or not good either, not as bad as the first two, it just stalls. The mission of God just hits the brakes, right. and the gospel doesn't go out. And so people aren't hearing the good news of Jesus, so they're not coming to faith, and that's bad. So if I can help a pastor, a church, a board, a staff minimize all those things that are in the way of a good transition, then I think I'm helping the gospel go forward.
Do you have a website?
Not yet, but it's in my...
If people are watching and they're watching another state or whatever, how would they contact you?
Well, they contact me at King of Kings at the time. So
King
just
of
go
Kings
to
in Omaha.
King of Kings website.
Pull up the
you'll
staff.
find me
He's
there.
There's an
Yeah,
email.
you'll find me
I
there.
recommended you last night to somebody. We talked about that.
Yeah.
A church down in Texas. So he's good at what he does. Okay.
Well, right now I'm working with a church in San Antonio, in Vegas, in Colorado, in Pocatello, Idaho, and every one of these situations is one of the things I say is there's no one size fits all. They're all completely unique with different circumstances. So it's nice to have an outside person that can kind of come in and be an objective person to help them see what they maybe are not seeing. Right. And plus with my heritage of many generations of pastors and being in the church, I kind of know how church works.
Right. So you're kind of becoming a pastor's pastor.
Yeah, I'm kind of just helping, encouraging them, and coaching them. It's fun.
Of course, I know your wife Sharon. I could see her helping you too. So
yeah,
I could see her traveling because she has a lot of insight. She has a lot of wisdom. She has a lot of discernment.
She
does. Consider that.
So, she does.
Anyway, so hey everybody, thanks for tuning in to Caring Community today. This is Dr. Mark Zehnder, a good friend of mine. We got to have you back. We got to have a part 2, and it was awesome. It was incredible. If you're a church that's struggling, Lutheran or not, whatever, look at King of Kings website, find him. You can email him or you can contact me. I'll refer you. I'll get you in touch with him. He definitely can help your church or your ministry transition to the next phase of what God has for you. Thanks for tuning in today. God bless you, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.